In this video, we will be covering the basics of Java programming and also writing our first programs. As you can see, I'm going to be working on a Mac computer and I will be using the shell, also known as the terminal, to program in Java. First, let's create a directory where all our source files are going to be. Let's call it Java. Next, let's navigate to that directory. And the next step will be create a file named firstjavaprogram.java. Now that we have the file created, it's time for editing. The text editor that I'm going to be using for this video is called Vim and it runs right on the command line. As you can see, this is an empty file, so let's start adding some Java syntax. If this is the first time you're seeing the following set of lines, don't panic. Just bear with me. This is a very simple Java program, and in fact it's a program that doesn't do anything. So what's the use of it? This program showcases a template for any Java program. So if this isn't making too much sense right now, just understand that if you want the computer to do something for you, you must write the template first. So now that we have a program, let's try and compile it. As you can see, there were no errors, so the next step is to look for our .class file. And here it is. The class file is what gets generated from compiling the source file, and it is the actual program that the computer executes. The source file is nothing but a human-readable form of the program. Since we mentioned human-readable form, let's talk about programming comments. So what are comments? A comment is a programming construct used to embed programming readable text in the source code and is totally ignored by the compiler. Comments are useful because they help clarify what's occurring throughout the code. So how do we add comments? Usually just 2 forward slashes at the beginning of the line is all you need to comment. So let's add 2 comments that describe what's happening in this program. If we go back and compile this program, we will see that the comments had no effect. Now that we're done with comments, let's modify our program a little bit and have it actually do something. But before, let's bring the concept of data types to the table. Data types determine the possible value for a particular variable and the operations that can be done to that variable. Some of the popular data types are int, float, and string. Int, as the name suggests, can hold values that are integers like 0, 1, 2, -1, -2, etc. Float hold numbers with decimal points in them, like 0.0, 1.1, 2.3, -2.3, etc. String hold sequence of characters, like, for example, Andy, UCSD, hello, and etc. One thing about data types is that they require variable names in order for the programmer to reference them. In general, we define a variable in Java by first typing the data type, the variable name, and then its value. So let's try that. Let's define an int. So it'll be the data type, in this case is going to be an int. The variable name, let's name that x, and then its value, let's just give it 0 for now. An example of float will be float, and suppose if we're doing something for a bank, then a float could very well serve the interest rate. So we just type interest rate here. And then a string. Let's do a string. Let's just call that message. Notice that the variable name here is totally arbitrary and can be anything you like. Now our program is actually doing something. It's actually storing some data that can be used for processing. Although visually speaking, this program is still not doing anything just yet. So let's compile it and see if we get any errors. No errors. So now that we have covered a few data types, let's actually have this program do something. Let's have it display on the command line the message that's contained within the string that we named message. So if we go back to our program, so if we go back to our program, we can use a function called system.out.println, and then we pass the message variable to it. So let's try and compile this. No errors. Great. So now it's time to run the program. The way that we do this is by typing the command Java followed by the program name, like so. Make sure the .class or the .java is not at the end, otherwise you'll run into some confusing errors. Alright, it works, and it is finally doing something. So what are these errors that I've been talking about when compiling? Let's go over a few of the most common errors that Java programmers at their early stages run into. If the class name doesn't match the file name, that will usually cause problems. So let's take a look at that example. So let's name first Java program to first Java program 2 and see if what do we get. So you can see the compiler generated an error, and it's actually a pretty clear one. It just says class first Java program 2 is public. It should be declaring a file name first Java program 2, because the file name where we typed our program is named first Java program and not first Java program 2. The compiler will complain about that. So just make sure that the names for the class and the file always match. So let's take a look at another example. Let's just fix this one really quick. And now let's try to add a different data value to int. If you remember, what I mentioned about data types earlier is that they determine the possible value for a particular variable. Okay, so we can't assign, say, hello world to int because that's not its data type. So let's see what the compiler says when we do this. So it'll give you an error stating that we have incompatible types in the program. So if we go back here and Just let's revert this change. Just put 0 here, and let's try to assign a decimal value to string and see what we get. And again, we will get an incompatible types. Okay, so now let's put all these issues together and see what kind of craziness we get. So you can see it's not that crazy. It's only 3 error messages all at once. This could look overwhelming, but never let the compiler frustrate you. Try to work the issues one at a time. So let's first fix this one. Let's just save, compile. Now we have 2 errors. So let's fix the next one. Now we have 1 error. Let's fix the next one. And now we have a working program again. And it runs. That's it. I hope this video was useful and informational, and thanks for watching.